Okay, so give me a moment. Here, this is going to be my presentation on the topic for East Asian for the final project. I'm doing my story on My Hero Academia. And it's the issue I'm going to talk about is the about the ideal Japanese workplace and the struggle to find success. So as we go here, this is the introduction. Give me a moment. There's just a lot of stuff on screen, so it's really hard to see. I'm gonna move that up. Okay. So My Hero Academia is a shonen manga that takes place in the near future where a superpower mutation has manifested in the majority of humanity, known as quirks, and follows along the story about how a boy without a quirk inherits his former idol's power and becomes the number one hero. And it focuses on the journey there. And the issue, as I mentioned, will be focusing on how problematic the ideal Japanese workplace mentality is and how the main character subverts it. So this is just the general synopsis. I think it does a good job explaining the story. The author of the manga series is Kohei Horikoshi. Its original publication was in July 2014 with an anime adaptation in 2016. And yeah, I think I kind of explained the genre as well. So I'm going to do an introduction about my issue, about the ideal Japanese workplace attitude, which is very competitive in many East Asian countries, which mainly the higher marks and high levels of achievement. And the workplace idealizes politeness, teamwork, planning ahead, and which allows for increased responsibility and learning opportunities. So I do want to mention that this is a good thing. It's very organized, very respectful, polite. I mean, those are several things that are really important um, in Japan, many Eastern countries. Although they do have their downsides, particularly on the pressure side of things. Um, yeah, what I wrote down here was cost of psychological pressure, forfeited childhood, regimes of rote memorization, lack of creativity, and private outlays for cram schools, or what the article, one of the articles I read about said. But to specify, for it creates a lot of pressure when because the people in the society have a lot of expectations. They have a lot of expectations on you, in wanting in you achieving success, and if you don't live up to them, then there's a lot of guilt and remorse for that. Forfeited childhoods, for example, is because they spend so much time. Many kids, many children spend so much time studying, then they don't have enough time to have fun during their childhoods. A lot of times, it's just their teachers basically want to, or not the teachers, their parents want their students to just be doing mainly just spending time studying, and it's just a little too just crazy how strict a lot of it can be. The problems in the workplace include indirect communication, slowness to adapt, and just due to risk adverse behavior, um, which is due to them, like, a lot of times they just prioritize hard work and effort, but they, in a lot of cases, because they're so because they're I feel like because the society is withdrawn, then they have just difficulty communicating with each other about issues in the workplace, and they worry about disrupting, causing. They want peace and respect, but they don't want, if there's an issue, they won't even they might not bring it up because they're worried they're gonna disrupt the peace, even if the thing might disrupt it even more. And yeah, the pursuit of perfection, is just because they're hardworking. and stuff, and they really want to put their A game into everything, which can be good and bad. For an example, I highlighted the manga artists, the people who made, for example, the series I'm talking about. They well, it's hard because you have to draw a chapter a week, and they're usually 20 pages. Parts of it might be advertising, so it might be 15, 16 pages. You have to draw full of probably like 20, 30, 40, maybe more 30, 40, 50 panels a week. And that's pretty difficult to do on a consistent basis. As you can see to the right, this is the upload schedule for the author of Naruto. And just 12, 21 hours of work per day with only 3 hours off the entire week. For example, on Sunday he's working until 5 in the morning. Um, in some cases he goes to bed at the very earliest 2. And you can see here they have 2 meals, maybe 1 meal a day. And you can tell it's just way too time constraining. So sometimes they're really crammed with work, and it puts a lot of stress on them. For example, Togashi, I forgot what his first name was, but he's the author of Hunter x Hunter. He probably has a similar, well, he relies on hiatuses, so that he doesn't have to work this hard, like over every week. But I mean, part of also the reason why he hasn't been able to work is because of back pain, which has hindered his upload schedule. As I said, he hasn't been hiatus for he's been on hiatus for 1.5 years. Yeah, you can bring up my stuff or something. I really, really don't want to record this, but it seems that privacy is only a myth. So I shall continue the presentation here. Excuse me for pausing it halfway in. And I mentioned with the author of My Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, is often shy and stressed by his work, which causes him to wear a mask around others. And if I test word is really annoying. Kohei Horikoshi mask. Yeah, as you see right here, he wears a mask like this around a lot in person, which I remember was because he was really shy and nervous and worried about like succeeding in his project. So he covers up his face like this. I don't know if it has to do with guilt, but it definitely does have there are things I want to mention that there's a lot of pressure on these people to perform. Going back to my series, The World of My Hero Academia. The characters who enroll in the hero course of MHA are held, and that's just the acronym for the series, are held to high standards to become the future generation of superheroes. And I mentioned this with Bakugo and Todoroki, who are two very key characters, two main characters, mainish characters. Not the main character, but just supporting characters. And usually they describe this kind of need to succeed. Both whether it's put on by their family or by other people around them, are in a like a mindset where they have to succeed, or else like failure isn't really accepted. for example, Bakugo and Midoriya's relationships based on workplace, I think had a relation with workplace bullying. Um, it kind of shows the relationship between those who conform to Japanese society and those who repel against the workplace mantra. And throughout the beginning of the series, and you see throughout the whole story how Bakugo, he's the character in gray. The main character is the Midoriya. He's in green, black hair, and you can see how Bakugo continually bullies Midoriya for not having what Bakugo thinks is valuable because Midoriya doesn't have a superpower quirk. Um, Bakugo basically degrades him and makes him feel worthless, and Midoriya agrees with that mindset at the beginning of the series. And oftentimes he's accompanied by friends who, because Bakugo's put such a big because he's really confident, and because this is like the mindset that, for example, they'll have in Japan, where it's like if you don't have what's valuable to society, like they don't see you as that good or like as that special, then like all his friends jump on the bandwagon and they basically try to hurt him, and it's just this group mindset, um, where those who don't conform to societal expectations in this case are suspect of bullying or like pressure put on by other people, and it really weighs down on those affected by it. I mentioned this more here for the reason for his bullying, because in preschool, when his quirk manifested, which usually manifests around like 5 years old, like kind of young, and because he was and his quirk's explosions, um, which kind of doesn't make sense, but like in a shonen series, like a lot of the all the superpowers like involve fighting and stuff because they're becoming superheroes. But because he had such a powerful ability, he was worshipped by all of by his class. As you can see here, this is the screenshot. It's kind of hard to see with my name in the way, but my face in the way. But you see here where you have like everyone around him telling how great he is, and he basically buys into the hype about how great he was. And because they said that he had a good superpower and that he would make such a difference in the world being a superhero, he believed that it was like the only thing that mattered to find success. And he basically, this is the reason why he goes against the main character, because he doesn't have what he has, even though I'm sure there are other ways to where he can contribute to society. But this is what Bakugo believes, and he bullies Midoriya for it. Yeah, and I mentioned here he at the beginning of the series, right before they graduated from his junior high, before they get into the school that's the setting of the series. I mean, besides making fun of him, like he threatened violence against him. He threw his belongings out the window in the trash, and he even told him to commit suicide. And this is actually the manga panel for it. If you want to be a hero so bad, there's actually a good way to do it. And he literally tells him to just take a swan dive off the rooftop. And I mean, that's just brutal. Like, I'm still surprised how this character is well liked. And I mean, it's more, and there's reason for it because it's like, I think a trope or something that just is that you get a lot of fangirls for. But like, I mean, some of the stuff he says is just brutal. It's like, why? I mean, but I mean, you could tell that it gets pretty bad. Um, and it really does weigh on Midoriya's mind because I mean, he feels like he doesn't have anything because he doesn't have the abilities to succeed in life, even though superpower doesn't feel like it. I mean, everyone else does have it, does have something he doesn't have. And in some cases, he kind of just feels disabled in a way compared to everyone else in society, and that he's weighing them down. Todoroki, on the other hand, he's also a classmate of the main character when they attend UA High School, which is what the setting is, the high school he goes to. And he was raised by his father to surpass the number one hero, something he wasn't able to do. Got close, but he wasn't quite there. And so, in a kind of unethical way, I mean, he actually
like there's apparently a system that allows like these kind of forced quirk marriages to go on where two individuals will marry just to have and somebody with special powers. For example, his father had really strong fire powers, and his mother has really strong ice powers, which actually shows in his hair. Part of it, half of it's red for fire, and part of it's white for ice. But because one of his weaknesses for the firepower is that he can't use it too much because like his body will overheat and he has to let it recharge. And a lot of and most quirks all have weaknesses. Then he can use his ice power to chill down, and that he would be basically be invincible, and that he would be able to become the number one hero from that. And this is where he kind of gave him severe training that probably hurt him and scarred him a little. And this I kind of compare it to how Japan disciplines their children by putting them through hardship because that's what their parents believe what's best for them. A lot of times it's up to the parents. They decide what they think is best for their children, and they make them go along with that decision, whether they like it or not. Um, and then this is one of the main ones, one of the big fights of the series, Deku versus Todoroki. During this UA Sports Festival, which is an arc that happens in the second season. Basically, it's a tournament, and while and Midoriya, I actually said Deku. I really did say Deku. So it's confusing. So Midoriya is the main character of the series, and Deku is a nickname that he goes by. It's just confusing because in the series they use three different names. I mean Midoriya versus Todoroki, if it isn't clear. But while they were fighting, Midoriya learned that Todoroki was only using his ice power, and he was for the whole series. He never really used his fire, only his ice. And basically he does so because he doesn't, he, well, because his dad hurt him a lot through the training he gave him, in a rebellious way. He's not using his power to show that his training isn't working and that like he kind of wants to make a statement. And even though Midori didn't have full control for his power, without like causing severe injury to him, and there's a reason why, but I don't want to like go into like the full spoils of it. But because he wasn't able to, even though he wasn't able to control his power, he tried to push himself in order to make Todoroki use his fire power, because he explains here how it's his own power, and then he gets to decide how he uses it, not his father. It definitely shows what kind of character Midoriya is when he pushes himself to the limits in order to try to improve Todoroki, try to make him be able to accept that side of him, even though it's reminiscent. Even though it reminds him of what his father did to him, it's still his own power, and that he has his own choices. And I feel like that's how he kind of subverts expectations. Instead of letting society decide how you're supposed to use your abilities, you should be able to decide on yourself. And it is very shonen-y, very anime, but I mean, it's a kind of cool moment. And I actually got a link for it right here. And it's a brief scene, but like here. And yeah, and to sum it up, um, after realizing it's his power, or I should say, I mean, like you can see that like he kind of once the main character like brought it up to him, he realized that it's like what he decides to do. And it's actually kind of interesting because throughout the fight, this this character right here, this is his father who put him through the training, and he actually gets up and he gets all excited, saying how, oh, you've come to your senses, now you can become the #1 hero. And it literally calls him his masterpiece, his best product, as if it's like an object to decide what he wants to do with him. But it's like, and actually once he makes his proclamation, and it's a very evil face for some reason, he actually cries here. And I mean, like, you could tell that this is weighing on his mind, and that like even then his father just doesn't understand like where he's coming from, and it kind of shows like just I guess how much the main character really wanted to like help be there for them. As mentioned, going on to the segue subversion of the protagonist, even though Midoriya has no talent at the beginning of the series and constantly gets bullied for it, I mean, even still, he still has a loving mother who takes care of him and a hero who helps look after him. And I think and even though he doesn't have anything, and this kind of gives him the emotional stability to develop into a leader and the future #1 hero. And I think you do need emotional stability. You need comfort in yourself in order to make changes like that. And because he was given such opportunity where all like expectations weren't always put on him because he didn't have a power, does he like become a lot more comfortable being able to help become a good leader. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. And it shows even though with his lack of talent, he can use his brain to outsmart his opponents instead of it being like a stereotypical push yourself harder to the limit. And I think that's a positive message to look for alternative ways to find success, and to find ways to be more comfortable in your shoes and finding success and not having to do everything and then some. Just really nice. Give me one. To continue this slide, how he does it, examples, whenever he finds heroes working in action, he always takes notes about him, and that way he can understand the strengths, weaknesses, and abilities. It isn't, and he uses his brain a lot more, which I think is more effective in the workplace, to find better ways to use your talents and to figure out what you need to do or like around you, rather than just try to work it harder. During the various school training activities, there are examples where he does try to find ways to think outside the box. And this link, it's a lot more brief than the last one. I just feel like I need like physical examples, or I do like to show physical examples because it does explain what really videos unavailable. I was gonna say it does show extra. I feel like it shows extra detail. To sum this video up with it's actually with Bakugo here, and when they participate in their first training exercise at UA, so both of them end up going to the same high school. And I mean, Bakugo here, he was wanting to be the first student of his class to go to that school, but Midoriya kind of, because he inherited the power of his idol, he was able to pass the exam, and he was upset that he was even trying to like steal his thunder. So when they had their first training activity at the school against each other, he wanted he wanted to get even with him and kind of bring him down a notch. But when he goes for his usual punch, I mean, because Midoriya's gotten beaten up so much, he's seen that he always starts off a fight with a right hook, and so he finds an effective way to dodge it and basically sumo fly, like he basically grapples him and just like slams him into the ground. And it's interesting because it's like he tries to think with his brain instead of just like physically be stronger than his opponent, and I kind of find it interesting. The future of Japanese work culture should probably go down to the presentation. Government intervention by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is being taken, well, a couple years ago, limiting the maximum staff work hours as well as designated several days of leave, which which I think would help, but I do believe it'll take a longer time for this issue to be fixed because their workers are still worried about disrupting the work environment. Even if they're given days of leave, they don't actually use them because they don't want to be seen guilty of not working as hard, which is kind of crazy. And they suffer from groupthink, very heavily from groupthink. I think groupthink is the biggest reason why they have to do what everyone else is doing, and if everyone else does something, then it's just going to persist. I do think positive change will happen. It'll just take a lot longer. So, as mentioned, more people aged 18 to 34 want to take breaks. Like 60% want vacation leave, while 40% of 50 plus Japanese people, workers, would want to take vacation leave. So there's a lot more younger people who want to take vacation leave, and it's just their society that's preventing them from doing so. So I think over a couple generations, this will definitely go down, and it won't be as bad. But I do think these issues might exist for quite a lot of time because there isn't really a lot of culture interference that's affecting them. And this is my bibliography, the sources I use to research it. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I'd like to know what you think about it. Thanks.